This is Geraldo, and Geraldo is an extremely crazy and, in a way, very complicated hero to use in Chimps mode. He does not that great of damage, but you can level him up and get this crazy shop, and there's a lot of items and a lot of cool tricks that you can do with them. But if you don't really know how to use them, you can't really make much out of it. But if you do know how to use the items, there's so many tricks that you can pull out of Geraldo's shop that will make your late game in Chimps mode really easy, to the point where even just a few $1,000s can make this very simple setup just beat all of these late game rounds with no problem at all. And this will be very useful for harder maps on Chimps and anything where you want to use Geraldo's items. So let's start with every single item and just explaining how this works, starting with the Shooty turret, or shitty turret you might say. So throughout all of these, I'm just going to have the stats open when they're important, and I'll just be explaining the uses of it, and then we're going to kind of wrap everything later on. So basically the Shooty turret, it can be used great in the early game. It's very cheap and it has a lot of pierce. That's the big thing to note, and it's going to be very ideal on straightaways. So it may not be the best for getting like single target, but for pierce and on a straightaway, you can do a lot with it. And so this will be very helpful in the early game. Maybe compare it with a sniper or something like that, and it's going to just help out a lot. You'll see these on like Ouch a lot, like on Ouch Chimps guides. They just put them on the corner, they shoot down, use all their pierce. It's great. You can even pickle buff Geraldo, and these guys will get the pickle buff. Just note that they are going to be shooting a little bit slower. They kind of have a slow rate in the first place, so they aren't really the most consistent, but they're pretty darn good, and you really can just grab a lot of RBE off rounds, especially ones that just have a ton of balloons. You also can put camo potions on this guy, so that can help out in the early game, and it's just a really great tower for the early game. But you can level them up to level 13 of level 13 Geraldo. You get the upgraded Shooty turrets, which have these new stats here, so you'll kind of see upgraded stats come in at the bottom. These are all from Cyber Quincy, by the way, and these guys are actually pretty darn good for their price. You can place down like maybe 10 or like 15 of these if you really place down all of them in a game of Chimps, and they'll be able to do a significant amount of damage for their price. It's not a bad option. It's not something that you always should spam, because sometimes you just don't really have the space. You need to do a save up or something. But if your strategy kind of is more weaker on the damage side, kind of more so cleanup, not like as much single target, you can just like spam these guys down. They're really cheap and they are pretty effective damage. They also can be used to place more Gerry fires, which you'll see later on. So yeah, pretty cool item. The road spikes, again, like the Shooty turrets, they have earlier version, so you'd get these guys kind of off the bat, and they can be good just for doing some cleanup. I wouldn't really recommend relying on these guys a whole lot in the early game for Chimps. On some expert maps you might see a few of them placed down, but they're $55 each, so you don't really want to be relying on them too much in the early game of Chimps. Round 24 though, you can get a very easy round 24 just using one spike, so you can hold off on getting camo. You don't have to worry about that. For $55, it's honestly a pretty good option. You can also place for $550 just all of them on round 40, which will take a bunch of RB off the Moab, which can make the Moab easier. This would be more particularly useful if you have like better cleanup but not much single target going into round 40. That would be the opposite issue for the blade trap, which you'll see that trick being used later for round 40. But then at level 13 you get upgraded spikes, so now they do like a little bit more damage. In the mid game these guys aren't really used, because normally in good strategy you'd have mid-game carry, mid-game setup that would allow you to save up. These guys actually, they do more damage than I thought. Like you could place them down to do single target damage, but in this area you'd have stuff that would be able to take everything out, hopefully, if your strategy's good, and then you'd be saving up, so you wouldn't want to spend money kind of in that area. That's something that I'm going to mention later on. Like generally you don't want to use Geraldo items in the mid game, like unless you really have to. Very little amount, but later on, all the way at level 16, you get the final form of Gerry spikes, and these guys are underrated as hell. They can like clean up a lot. Just like a few of them will take a lot of leaking ceramics, so you'll see on expert Chimps gameplay just a few spikes at the end, they'll be able to do a lot. Just a few of them can even tank a whole DDT and maybe even like half another one, which is just insane. So yeah, really strong, and you get a bunch of them. They're super cheap, and they're really more of like a clutch used on like expert chimps challenges and that kind of stuff. But if you ever need some insurance and you have some money spare, you can just throw a bunch of these Gerry spikes out at the end, and if a rogue Moab or like 6 of them go by and you have the full stack there, they're just going to be tanked. It's kind of amazing and really underrated. Another really underrated one is the Creepy Idol. For only $110, this thing can actually do a lot, and you can get 4 of them. So really cheap, less than $500, you have a substantial blowback force. So on its own, these guys don't look like they do a whole lot. They just like blow back a few balloons-ish, like you let most of them go through, but you can get a whole bunch of them, the whole stack of 4, and they can knock back a lot. You can use this like early on for something like round 63. Watch kind of half of round 63 gets split up. It makes it so much easier, especially if you have a glue on deck. But the more useful thing is that later on when you level Geraldo up to, let's see, what level is it? I had to look back at my reference quick there. It's level 12. Geraldo will then be able to knock back Moabs. Well, not knock back, kind of just stun Moabs and BFBs, DDTs too with this thing if it has camo. And it's just really, really good. Really cheap, really effective. And then later on at some level, when it disappears, it will like put concoction on the balloons, but this is kind of useless because when it disappears, like it's in the middle of the round, so there's nothing to put it on unless you sell it in the middle of a round to get like concoction on 2 balloons, but then you're like sacrificing all your, it's just not good. There's really no point in using this trick, but it's something that it does, so I mean I might as well mention it. It's kind of funny, but this thing it's just very underrated. You put 4 of these guys on round 98 and they'll be able to do a lot of work. They also can help out against like round 63, just like some random issues you're having. Really, really cheap and really effective. So yeah, you definitely should check them out. And there's also a really funny video that I did a while ago with Orca, kind of using a strategy, but this time we did a Gerry restock, so that's kind of when you time Geraldo, so all of the items will come back at a specific set round by placing Geraldo, so you get the level 20 restock. And I got down 8 of these guys, and it just completely like perma stun round 98. It was pretty darn cool, and with Orca I was able to get like a ton of cash spare. So you can see there, it will drop like concoction if you sell it, but this is kind of useless. I don't really know why you'd want to do it. If there's some use for it, I guess you could tell me, but might as well just buy a concoction at that point. But yeah, it's just really effective, and you'll be able to see kind of just a quick little example here with 1 tech tear and 4 of these guys against round 98. It will be able to just stun and lock just a ton of ZOMGs, kind of keep them together, huddled up and in place, and you really can get a lot of value out of your defense and just push things way better with it. So really, really underrated item. I recommend using it so much. There's like no reason not to, unless your defense just absolutely destroys rounds like 98, but it can even do more elsewhere. Anyways, the next one is the Pickles, the jar of pickles. So basically, it's pretty simple. It will increase damage of your towers by 1, but give you a kind of nasty now decrease speed. It didn't used to be that bad, but now it's kind of bad. So this really in general is only good on towers that have 1 or 2 damage. More than that, it's just going to be a waste because you're going to be losing out on so much attack speed and all. So let's just take this attack zone, do a real quick example. It's going to get 64,000 pops on round 98. And let's put a pickle on this guy. So this tower does 2 damage, by the way. It used to do 1, but now it does 2 damage. And with a 2 damage tower, we're going to be ramping that up. And now it's 74,000 pops. So on a 2 damage tower, pretty nice increase. 1 damage tower, it's going to be actually kind of insane. But later on at level 16, it gets increased. It will now do another damage to fortified balloons. So on round 98, we're going to see it do even more. And it's going to be now 93.5 thousand, which is actually a really, really good increase. Now, this might sound good. You're like, okay, I should be putting Pickle on all these towers, but On tax zone, I wouldn't do it on tax zone, because if you have tax zone, you're probably going to have an embrittlement, in this case even a super brittle, which is even worse. Alk buff, maybe you have Gwen buff, so that's 1 2 3 4 damage added to the 2, so now that's doing 6 damage. That's way more than 2 damage. If you have super brittle, that's like plus 5 damage. So a lot of times when you have damage debuffs and all these buffs put onto it, it's going to be doing more damage, and Pickles not going to be worth it. But what it is worth it is in the early game, a lot of these towers just don't have that much damage. That shrapnel sniper, that balloon jitsu, Pickles going to be doing pretty good in there. So if you need some clutch, some help in the mid game, early game, you can use Pickle there. Late game, Pickle really isn't that useful. So kind of just that's something that you should be aware of. Now, the next item is the rare Quincy action figure, commonly referred to NFT, even though it's nothing close to an NFT. And because this is a chimp series, and I'm not really, I've gotten like top 3 boss before, but I don't do boss. I wouldn't say I'm qualified to like talk about these farming towers or kind of stuff. So if you have some input or strategy how to use this, you could put it in the comment. But just for the sake of this video, and because I'm not like a pro boss player, I'm not going to be talking much of anything about this and like fertilizer, that kind of stuff that is useless in chimps mode. But in the meantime, just enjoy some mesmerizing round 768 gameplay. Anyways, moving on to the next item, we have Camo Pot. This thing is very simple. It gives camo for a short duration. There's no really tricks to it other than the fact that it's just going to wear out at some point. So if you're relying on this, you're going to have to make sure that you aren't going to just accidentally forget and immediately die to a camo pink on round 47. Anyways, it's pretty good-ish. It only lasts 5 rounds at the beginning, so you can't really like consistently use camo pod. And if you have more towers, which you probably are going to have more towers that need camo, you are going to need to get a camo detection anyways. So typically this might save some time on getting camo. Like you could probably get a better discount setup with your camo village and all later, and it would be worth it just to put a camo pod on your towers for the early rounds. But after that, not really so much. But it does become useful at level 14 and level 18. You get increase. At level 14 you get extra range, and level 18 you get plus, actually no, it's level 19, you get +1 damage to camo balloons, which means unless you strip the camo off the DDTs, you will be doing +1 damage to DDTs, which can be very good. Just like watch this Robo Monkey destroy DDTs. This is just one single unbuffed Robo Monkey with a camo pot, which is very good. So a lot of times you'll be seeing camo pots put on stuff with more range, more damage to DDTs in late game. Very effective. Glue, on the other hand, is also, again, very effective. A lot of these things are very effective, no wonder. So glue is great in the early game, like actually really good. You put this thing down on like round 22 or like 20, 21, 22, 23, like those rounds are just slowed. No worries, they make it a lot easier, especially because it goes through all the layers. It is useful in a lot of parts in like the mid game, although it will wear out a little earlier. But in late game you will have this ramped up again and will be able to slow down mobs, which is pretty nice. It's just not really super effective because it doesn't last that long. It's pretty cheap, so you can put like it down kind of at the end on round 98 to slow down some like maybe leaking ceramics, a few Moabs. But you can't just like put this down at the start of round 98 and expect to slow much. It'll be able to get more DDT, so probably more useful in DDT rounds, but other than that, not so much. But in the early game, you want to place it at the start so it doesn't use all its pierce on the children, because it will soak through everything. So just keep that in mind. Next upgrade is Sharpening Stone, which will increase the pierce of a tower that has sharp type projectiles. So no, this will not work on a bads, because that has shatter type, but something that has sharp type like this Dart Monkey will be able to get +1 pierce, which is really nice. A lot of towers do have sharp type damage, particularly in the early game. This will be very useful. Your subs, your snipers, Dart Monkeys, all that kind of stuff. I mean, some tower you wouldn't want to put a sharp stone on a Dart Monkey, because you're spending as much to increase its pierce as it would just to get another Dart Monkey. But a tack zone would be great, and you probably always want to have your sharp stone on the tack zone. So we can just get just a standard tack zone setup, and we can increase the pierce, and now all of these projectiles with their damage debuffs and all that will have one more pierce, which is very, very useful. So this big horde of Moabs, it's going to go down. It does leave like a lot of yellows and stuff. That is quite a lot of yellows from like all those ceramics, but with that pierce it actually cleans up everything, which is really, really cool. So put this on some sharp type damage that you're using kind of effectively, and you're going to be doing very well. And then you can upgrade this all the way to level, which is it, level 15, I think. Yeah, level 15, and you get your upgraded bonus, which is kind of lame. It only gives it +1 more pierce, so now it's +2 pierce. In late game, a lot of towers are probably not going to be benefiting a crazy amount from it. It was pretty cheap, so you can just get it anyways. I'd get it anyways, but it used to give +1 damage at the upgraded thing, and that got nerfed, so well, stinks to stink, I guess. Way less effective than +1 damage is the +1 pierce. But in the early game you can use it too, like on that double shot ninja. Next thing is going to be Worn Hero's Cape, and basically this will turn a dart monkey into a super monkey, and you can upgrade it to tier 3 only, which might seem a little weird because you're not saving much money at all. It's like maybe a few $100s being saved, because you still have to get that dart monkey and transform it into that super monkey. But it has something really cool that you might not think about, and this is just makes a very overpowered strategy. So watch this. Super monkeys are expensive, you know that. Discounts are extremely powerful with super monkeys, but you can't really like discount many super monkeys. Like they have huge hitboxes, the villages do too. I can get like 2 of these 3 super monkeys to get a discount, and the third discount can't even reach, so it's just useless. Like, you can't really make the OP super monkey discount farm. But watch this. What if we buy our discounts first, and then what we do is we take a bunch of 0/0 dart monkeys and we shove them in the range. They have tiny hitboxes. You can get them all in. So we can get, I think here we had 3 in triple discount and 2 in double discount, which is an insane amount. And now we can cape all of these, and we have 5 super monkeys in the range of very good discounts, something you'd never be able to get that before. You have so much cheap power, like insanely cheap power with all these discounts, because these are under tier 3s. They can all be discounted. It's just extremely strong, and this is really one of like the powerful Geraldo strategies. Just watch this power. For just a very cheap price you can get so much. So Geraldo Robos, you can do this I guess in Sun Avatars and Dark Knights too. Not as effective, but Geraldo Robos, extremely effective strategy, and that's just the thing that Cape does. You can use Cape in other ways too, but it's very good. Now let's take a look at the Blade Trap. So the Blade Trap will activate kind of a little Maelstrom, a little less powerful than a Maelstrom, and it will be able to just destroy some stuff. Now this thing is expensive, $700, so you want to be very careful. You can't just be using blade traps wherever, whenever, but it can take out like a good wave of ceramics if you ever need it to. Just recommend in the mid game, don't be relying on this thing, because I see a lot of people just like placing blade traps wherever in the mid game, and you get no money. These things are expensive and they ramp up quick. It's not like just a $110 glue. This thing is 7 times more expensive than that, so you got to keep that in mind. But at level 14 you are going to be getting an upgraded one that will be better. But first, the big thing to note with Blade Trap is that it's very commonly used against round 40. You have the round 40 mob, these ceramics, they're going to get straight through, especially on a shorter map, but Blade Trap it then, nope, stops it completely. So for $700, a lot of times it's very worth it to just beat round 40 the easy way and move on another way. Then at level 15 we get the upgraded Blade Trap, which is kind of like Super Maelstrom. It used to be just like the Super Maelstrom, but now it got nerfed, so it lasts a lot shorter. But you can still use this on like round 98, especially if you have a debuff on the screen. It will be a lot more effective. But just like spam all 4 of these guys down and we'll be able to take like a good chunk of round 98 out. That's pretty much like the use for it. You can like clean up it's better when you have like the Moabs and super ceramics leaving through. They'll be able to just mess everything up, so that's pretty cool. But it's not as strong as it used to be. It definitely can help on round 98 though. You just need a whole bunch of them, and then you'll be able to clean up a decent amount. So that's the Maelstrom, mostly round 40. That's very useful. The next item is going to be the Gerry Fire. So this one is one that again got another nerf recently. It's pretty bad in the mid game now. Well, not pretty bad, but a lot worse in the mid game because it only lasts 5 rounds, and this thing is expensive. So you don't really want to be really relying on this guy to beat round like the mid game rounds, because it's gonna ramp up a lot of money to be able to just do that. But a cool interaction it does have with turbocharge and permacharge. This is an old glitch that was kept in the game because the developers thought it was cool, but if you put it on this guy and activate the ability, the Gerry Fire starts shooting boomerangs, which is kind of funny and also very good actually. You can see that ZOMG just got absolutely destroyed, and that's the Pierce crosspath, by the way, not the single target. So you could have multiple ZOMGs and it will just rip all of them up. So that's a really cool interaction that you can do. Definitely recommend that one. But just in the mid game, you can throw it on. It will do some extra damage. But again, I don't like, you could do like 1 or 2 of these guys, but it will ramp up, like it will cost a lot of money very quickly if you're using this to rely on the mid game. However, the upgraded variant lasts for 10 rounds, which is really nice. So you can throw that around later more. You'll be getting that at level 16, so that's going to be very useful. Also, another thing to note is that we'll follow aces and helis, which is kind of funny. So that's something you can do with it, I guess. But at level 16, it will be buffed. It has a pretty good buff and will be able to do a lot more damage and last 10 rounds. So basically the big thing that you do with this guy is that for some cheap damage, kind of like the Shooty turrets, in the late game round 90s and up, you can just spam all these because they're going to last the entirety of the 90s if you get them there. And with the restock and all, you can get like a good chunk of them, like 8 or 9, and with like if you have a damage debuff on the screen, maybe even like call to arms, why not? These can do a pretty good amount of damage. So if you got some money floating around, some cash spare, and you want some more damage, maybe your defense is a little lacking on damage, you can spam those Shooty turrets and then spam all those Gerry Fires on top, and they'll be able to do a good amount of damage. So like all the other items, just a very useful trick to have in the Geraldo shop. Very versatile hero, that is. The next one is another not Chimps item, Fertilizer. It makes the farms better, I guess. Doesn't really do much else past that, I think. It's not like going to be weaponizing your bananas. You won't have your banana empire weaponized and all. But yeah, I think this one's just a lot more simple. It's just you put it on the farms, and like the farms do better. Just like on like factories and banana centrals, I guess it's more effective. But if you have more insight, throw that down in the comments. Again, I'm not like a serious boss player. The pet rabbit is cool. This one is really interesting because this has a mechanic that most people don't really know about. I think it's like the avatar of Raft, where the more RB that's on the screen, the more damage it will do. So if you did not know that, I guess you know that now. Pretty neat. But you basically can get 3 of these guys and they are going to do absolutely nothing. Watch them go. But get a 4th one and you get a super bunny. I believe it is a reference to Monty Python Holy Grail, so that's pretty cool. I do like that movie. I watched it a long time ago. I should watch it again. But basically it's Killer Bunny. It's mostly going to be doing kind of clean up, so it's going to be better taking out like Moabs and ceramics. As you can see, against a single Moab, like especially for the length of this map, it's not that good. It's a little bit better when you get like multiple, because it does have some pierce, but it does lack some damage. However, again, with that RB mechanic, we don't really have much RB. It's every 2,500, you get +1 caps at 40, so you're going to have more of that. It's going to do more damage. And also, like, if you have an ice tower, then you can kind of just lock some ceramics and the bunny will get it. So now let's send just like a shit ton of ZOMGs. We're going to get that RB way up. And now let's send these fortified mobs. If the bunny isn't distracted attacking the ZOMGs, you can see that it will rip up these fortified mobs a lot faster. So that's pretty cool. It's a neat little tower, and you get it roughly around the mid game. You can get it if you need cleanup. If you don't need cleanup, I'd recommend skipping it, but very cool. You just need to find a good time to buy it, and then you can do it. Rejuve, really simple, just gets your abilities back for $2,000. It can be useful in a lot of ways, and this is kind of what it is. So basically, if you have a big ability based damage tower, Rejuve's going to be crazy because for 2k you're going to get that ability back and you're just going to be able to destroy everything. So you can use it just like with say the Swizzlord Phoenix to double its duration. Some of them, they won't let you like have 2 big skybirds at once, kind of just like that. Like you can't have 2 big skybirds at once, but you can have double duration and just use the rejuve and get it back instantly and be able to nearly take out 98. You can also kind of use it as a clutch. Say if you're doing this really hard strategy like Plasmonkey Fan Club, not the easiest thing to pull off, you can just use Plasmonkey Fan Club and not give a shit about the ability timing or stalling like that. Instead, when round 99 and those DDT comes, just pop that rejuve and bam, it's back up. You don't have to deal with anything. And then round 100 slow, you can just let that go by and you can pop the Plasmonkey Fan Club again, and there you go. So really cool, very, very useful in many circumstances. Probably the most common though is round 95. So basically you can get like 2 sabos to completely sabo all of 95. If your strategy is struggling with DDTs, you frequently will need to do that. But with Geraldo, instead of buying that hold for $10,000 a sabo, you can get it for a fifth of the price and just rejuve the sabo ability for round 95. You don't really have to worry about like not having the double sabo for other rounds, because 99 you only need 1 sabo and everything else it's not going to be doing that much. But Geraldo Tech Terror is something that's very, very strong, and if you haven't used this, you definitely need to check this out, because watch this. Like, I'm not going to put much effort into this thing, and even on short maps too, like this is like we aren't pushing much RBE on this map. With just 1 rejuve and 1 Tech Terror, you can completely eliminate the entirety of round 98 in Chimps mode. Like, it's actually really, 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 really good. The Wizard Lord Phoenix wasn't able to do that, but like a tower half the price, yeah, you can do that. So Tech Terror, very, very good. And then Genie, moving on to getting to the end of the shop here. Also another really strong guy. It only lasts for 2 rounds. The earlier version isn't really necessarily as good. It's quite expensive. It can like solo 2 rounds, so unless you really need it, you can use it there, but I recommend trying to hold off. It's mostly going to be best in late game, where we're going to have another projectile that comes out of it at level 18. You get the upgraded golden genie, and it's really cool. I also noticed that there's this weird bug where you can change the flight pattern from figure infinite to first. Well, actually, no, first from figure 8, and then you can't change it back. Like, kind of weird thing. I don't know why that exists, but funny bug I saw. Anyways, this is just really strong, but one thing that you need to keep in mind is that it only lasts 2 rounds and has long restock. So you're going to want to plan out when you want to use it. Like, you could use one on 94 to 95, and then use one on 98 to 99, and then get back one for 100. A lot of times with Geraldo, 100 is not really going to be an issue if you didn't use your rejuve. So unless you're using a rejuve strategy, you typically can just rejuve a Spike Storm or First Strike and just take out 100. So you could kind of consider that wouldn't be necessary, but it's just really powerful. Sometimes you might want to save 2 for 98 and just wipe out 98 like that. Just figure out when you're going to want to use it and all. So that might be a little bit tricky to find out like the right or most ideal timing, because you might get to a certain round where you need your genie and it's just not there, and then you die, and you'd probably be really, really sad after that. So in order to make sure that you're not really sad, I guess figure out kind of when you want to use it, if you're going to be planning around that, or just like do it like double 98 and 99 and you'll be fine. So anyways, genies, they are really, really strong, but they're limited. You don't get them for every round. If it was when Geraldo was on release, they get on 3 round basis, which is extremely overpowered, but nah, we don't get that. So moving on to the next one, we get the Paragon totem. Yay, you can build Paragons, really expensive ones, for 28k. That is an awful deal if you're even going to get a Paragon in Chimps mode in the first place. But in order to kind of break up these 2 sections, where we're going to go from explaining the items to like, kind of just explaining some basic Geraldo strategy and how to use these items, let's take a look at this funny example that I did while recording the example segments, where I got it. Here's a degree 61 dart Paragon. That's pretty good. Let's send it against a round 200 bad. How many damage layers do you think this will get off of it? And if you said 0, you would be absolutely correct, because this thing will not do anything to around 200 bad. So yeah, not the greatest in Chimps mode, I'd say. Let's make things a little bit easier. DDT, nope, won't be able to pop that. How about just a Moab? I was wondering how fast this thing could take out a Moab, and it got pretty far. If we make it a fortified Moab, it won't be able to pop it at all. So yeah, degree 60 dart Paragon not being able to pop a fortified Moab. good job. I applaud you very much so greatly. Anyways, here's just an example Chimps game where I'm going to be kind of just discussing the strategy. So I mentioned a few things a little bit, but when it comes to Geraldo, his items cost money, and that's unlike any other hero. So you're going to have to be very, very careful about it and make sure you aren't spending too much money. But the whole idea, and generally if you put this in your mind, you'll be able to use Geraldo a lot more effectively, is that you can use Geraldo's items in many different ways to be able to get through very niche and specific circumstances, which will open a lot more strategies up and can make things a lot easier, even compared to just other heroes where you place them down and they do stuff. But in order to do this, you're going to want to make sure that you have some money, that you still have the money to get your chimp set up, because you still need your whole strategy in the first place, but you want to use all of his items to kind of aid it in the late game. So you're not going to want to use that many items in the early game, nearly nothing in the mid game, because as I mentioned before, those items, they get really, really expensive if you keep using them in the mid game. So try to just like not use anything in the mid game at all, just like maybe a sharp stone, a pickle if you need to, a glue if you need to, just really that only cheap stuff, if you even have to use it at all in the mid game. But then when it comes to late game, if you have about $10,000 or $15,000 saved up, it's just going to do so much. And all those items, you can put them down. You can put down your turrets, Gerry, if I have your bunny. Unlike for the mid game thing that I mentioned before, you can get bunny in the mid game because that's just going to carry over through the entire late game. So yeah, if you need bunny for mid game, you can get that. But other than that, just make sure you don't really spend much of anything. However, in the early game, the items, they'll be able to go very well. They're only cheap items, so it's not like you can waste much money in the first place. But you can use Geraldo items in the early game to make your early game way easier and allow you to actually save a lot of money. Like, you wouldn't have to get like a whole early game carry in many instances if you can pickle and sharpstone this tack shooter. You just go straight into other upgrades that you're going to be having later on anyways. So I recommend using maybe $1,000 or $2,000 in the early game, $500 at max in the mid game, and then maybe $10,000 to $15,000 in late game. You can just go all out in the late game, last hurrah, beat everything. So as you can see, I was using some of those tricks. That round 24 camo, don't have to care about that. We actually get cheaper out if we use that road spike. We can use that maelstrom to beat round 40, so we don't have to spend a ton of money on like a Moab Mauler. Way cheaper to do that. With that camo potion, I was able to just then get a village later, so I don't have to get like a 302 ninja to beat the early game, saving a lot of money again. And then we can build into our mid game, and this is where we aren't going to be saving money getting Geraldo items, because as you can see in the early game, you can do that to save money, like with those Shooty turrets too. But in the mid game, we're going to be building up our actual defenses so that we'll have that for the late game, and we don't want to be spending our money. Besides, I'm going to get that rabbit, I think, so why not go for that? But yeah, you can just use like a pickle or a sharpstone to kind of help your towers out. That's really the most I'd get beyond that. But going into the late game, you'd have a lot more. So for this strategy, I'm gonna just have we're gonna have some tack shooters and Inferno Ring and the tack zone. They're going to be working out. There's strategies that will be working like specific with Geraldo, but a lot of things you can just do whatever, unless that strategy really specifically needs another hero. You can do a lot with Geraldo because his bag is so versatile. All of these items, they can be doing a lot. They can be very effective with other things, particularly ability based strategies can be very, very good with Geraldo. So like Wizard Lord Phoenix, that's a funky tower that you may not really have used much before, but with Geraldo you can do some great things with Wizard Lord Phoenix with that rejuve ability. Just like 2 free Wizard Lord Phoenixes whenever. It's a great deal. Anyway, so we get that, we get our towers up, and again, as I mentioned before, in the mid game we're going to be focusing more on like traditional strategy, just building up our mid game, having a strong carry, and being able to deal with all of that without any issues. Round 63 is coming up. A common thing that you'll see for round 63 is the use of just 2 glues. Put 2 glues at the front, 1 on each side if it's a multi-lane map, and that will be able to slow down round 63 significantly and make it a lot easier. This can actually save some money if you would have had to get like a pierce option to be able to beat round 63 in the first place. Either that or like that and some creepy idols that will be able to just take out round 63 very nice and very easy. I have a really high pierce Ring of Fire here and an embrittlement on top of that, which will just absolutely demolish it. So I don't need to get that, so might as well just be safe and not get it. Now another thing is that sometimes you might not know, especially if you're bad at like predicting how much damage or how well your setup will be able to be, or like do. If you don't really know if you need to use Geraldo items or not, it's very good to just do one test run, just a gold border test run. See, oh, can I beat this round with this item? Is it close? If it's close, there's probably going to be like RNG involved when you do it on your black border run. So it might be good just to be safe and use like a glue here, or put that sharpening stone on that tower, or maybe like a pickle if it's going to be worth it to use a pickle. So just kind of stuff like that, and then if you write that down and note it all down, you will be able to use it. Again, Geraldo's like a lot more of a complicated hero, but if you can figure out and learn how to use these items correctly, you're going to be in quite a treat for some really cool strategies, and it will help out on like a lot of other harder maps. And also, Geraldo has gotten a lot of nerf since. He's not overpowered in my opinion. There are some times where he might feel overpowered because like certain tricks with his niches, like if you're in a specific situation, only Geraldo will be able to save you from that situation. So sometimes like when you're in a situation like that, he can feel overpowered, but in general I think he's actually pretty decently powered, and if he gets more nerfs, that would kind of be very questionable. In fact, I would like even buff a few of his weaker items, to be honest. And I'd say he's pretty good, but he used to be like the overpowered hero. Now he's pretty good, but he's still kind of complicated to use. The complexity didn't disappear. In fact, it might have gotten even harder, because like now you gotta use your brain on some of these rounds and strategies more. But yeah, overall just a very good hero, I'd say, and you can really do a lot with it. Really, the versatility is huge, so you can put Geraldo in a strategy and he's just going to be able to wipe everything out. But going into the late game now, we're heading into the 80s, saving up from my tower. You can use, like, if you really need to in the 80s, you can use a Genie to be able to push through like 81 or 82 and then get your save up like that. That is something that you might see. I don't really come in contact with that a lot because I usually plan my save ups pretty well, but if you need to do that, that's always an option. Got my Inferno Ring here, and now we're going into the 90s, and this is about where we can go all out. We can say fuck it and just get everything. So starting off, I'm going to upgrade this tower a bit, and I think we're going to get primary expertise, and then once we get that, we have like all of our stuff sorted. We can just go all out on the Geraldo items. So don't be afraid when you're in the late game, unless like you really know that you need to save up for like something specific. Don't be afraid to just spend the money on Geraldo's shop. I get the Relentless Glue, I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna need a Spike Storm later, so I'm gonna have to keep that in mind, but we can just throw Geraldo's items. More range on the primary expertise is great. I was about to clutch up those ceramics leaking with a spike, but the Inferno Ring Meteor actually got it. Then we can throw those fires on, as you can see. Also extra damage on the DDTs with that onto the attack zone and all that kind of stuff. And then fires, we can use Geraldo's Rejuve if I need to for these DDTs on round 95. I don't have to, so I won't use it. Then that restock comes in, we can use more Gerry fires, which do an insane amount of damage. I can throw the spikes down. I probably should have done that in case I needed to, but I didn't. We can get all of these creepy idols down for round 98. We can place the Genies down, and literally it's not going to be an issue at all. Like, we have so much stuff going on. We can just use all these items and have the freest late game ever. I didn't even get primary expertise. I thought I was going to get that, but I didn't get that. And then round 100, just got to keep that in mind. Don't worry, I have so much money. We can get a Spike Storm, double rejuve that thing, and the bad's just down. So yeah, Geraldo can do a lot, and if you know how to use him, you're in for a treat.
Thanks for watching. If you want to help out the channel, you can check out these new videos, like and subscribe for more content, support the channel by becoming a member, and joining the Discord to chat with the community. Bye!